in conversation with Regan W. H. Macaulay. Regan W. H. Macaulay is a multi-award winning author of novels, short stories, children's literature, and script. Writing is her passion, but she's also a producer and director of theater, film, and television, Triple Take Productions. She's an animal enthusiast as well, which led her to become a certified canine and feline massage therapist. Regan hails from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where she lives with her husband, Kelvin, cat Jacobi, Jack, and an assortment of amphibians and fish. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Regan Macaulay. How are you doing, Regan?
I'm terrific. How are you? I hope you're great.
I'm doing fine too. It's lovely to have you on the show today. I'm quite excited.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. So Reagan, could you tell us about your book, Peter Littlewink, and that's my namesake. How does this book come about? What inspired the making of it? And also, what kind of research was involved for Peter Littlewings as well as the other books in the series? What inspired you to write from the perspective of animal characters endemic to New Zealand?
Well, um, as far as how the book came about,
Mm.
it was after a trip I took with my husband yeah, actually, he was my fiance at the time, to New
Oh,
Zealand. Yeah. This was way back in 2003.
wow.
And yeah. So this book, from inspiration to publication, has been 20 years in the making, basically. So it's a big deal for me. And so happy that I've been able to get it published. But when my husband and I did travel to New Zealand, we spent a couple weeks in the South Island and a couple
Mm.
weeks in the North Island. And it was really the place that inspired the
Mm.
story. The place and the animals and the people that we met there. The people are incredibly friendly in
Mm.
Aotearoa, which is the Maori name for New Zealand.
Wow.
And yeah. So their indigenous people are incredibly inspiring, and all of their peoples, who often call themselves Kiwi, um, are very inspiring and warm and friendly and hospitable.
Mm.
And the animals fascinating. It's not uh, the animals aren't as crazy as they tend to be in Australia,
Mm.
uh,
Wow.
but there are a lot of birds, and kiwi in particular are so very interesting. That's
Beautiful
Peter.
cover.
He's a kiwi there,
Mm.
and just because they're kind of like uh, mammals in a way. And when New Zealand first came into being, many, like even well, millions of years ago, but it's before humans came to the islands, which has only been for a few hundred years.
Mm.
Um, it was the only mammal there that existed until humans brought mammals,
Mm.
including themselves, was the bat, which is ironic because bats fly. And the most predominant animal, and we say like, sort of the mammal of New Zealand at the time, were
Mm.
all the birds. The birds were sort of the apex animals of New
Mm.
Zealand. Anyway, all of this I found absolutely inspiring, and led to me choosing characters from mostly the bird population, but also the endemic. I almost said lizard. It's not a lizard, reptile. They look like lizards, but they are reptiles called tuatara. And
Wow.
yeah, and they are these creatures, most of the ones that I've chosen, and a lot of the creatures in New Zealand are actually
Mm.
endangered in some form or other, some very critically so, including the tuatara and the and kiwi and many of the other animals that I
Wow.
try to include characters over book one and upcoming book two, three, and four. So
Wow.
that was really what inspired the making of it. And it came about also because at the time I was taking a correspondence writing course through the Children's Institute of Literature in
Wow.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Um, and part of the course, well, the whole second course I was taking was basically writing your first novel.
Mm.
So I chose to write Peter Littlewing that way as its first draft. As far as the research involved
Yeah.
with Peter Littlewing, obviously we went there, my husband and I. So there was a little that was what started it all, but the extensive research into the animals themselves, obviously, because they are the characters.
Mm.
But also, what I made sure to do was to have, in addition to my publisher's editor, an
Yeah.
editor from New Zealand to verify that I had gotten things right, basically, because
Mm.
I'm Canadian, I'm not from Aotearoa, so I have to make sure that this, even though it's a work of fiction,
Mm.
I wanted it to resonate with people all over the world, including people from New Zealand. And to that end, also, I had a Maori assessor, sensitivity reader,
Mm.
look into all of that, particularly the grammar and macrons and things involved, but also that, that it was sensitive, not in any way inadvertently
Mm.
offensive, which would be the last thing I would want, and for the authenticity as well.
Wow.
So that would be the research involved and why I chose animals endemic to New Zealand. I think I've kind of answered that already. They're so wonderful, and I have a tendency to write from the perspective of animals anyway. All of my books are anthropomorphic so far, so
That's
that's what I would
amazing.
say.
Please show the book to the camera again.
Sure, here it is.
That's a lovely cover. I love the way the glossy look, shining.
Thank
Yeah,
you. And
thank you.
I have to give a shout out to Gord Bagshaw, who did the cover art, as
Mm.
well as there are illustrations on every chapter. So he did beautiful black and white work as well in the interiors of the books that really make New Zealand moments and moments from the book and the characters shine through. I'm just so grateful to have him on board for this book and the future books coming out.
Mm. Wow, interesting. I love the sound of it. And now you also have another title in the name of Tamara Torto's Life so far. For
Yeah,
readers
that's
who
right.
haven't read the book yet, beautiful cover too. And without
Thank
giving
you.
much information away, could we have a sneak of what you'd expect picking up Tamara Torto's life so far?
Well, it's basically about a red-eared slider turtle who
Mm.
starts off in a pet store, very small, and is adopted, purchased by someone, a parent for their kid. But what commonly happens with these turtles, they have been so inexpensive and so small and cute and seemingly easy to care for
Mm.
that the young person got little bored and lax about taking care of her, and she outgrew her tank, and just because they didn't know, right? And
Mm.
the mom, seeing all this, didn't know what else to do, so she ended up taking the turtle to a creek and just releasing it.
Yeah.
But it, fortunately, a good Samaritan does come along and finds Tamara, and it takes her to an animal shelter who is able to find her a good home. I like to tell the whole story basically in a nutshell because I think parents want to know for sure that this picture book has a happy ending,
Mm.
even though it's teaching some lessons. So it's intended to show kids and their parents actually the sort of commitment and responsibility involved in
Mm.
if you choose to adopt, and preferably adopt from a rescue because there are quite a few and they have a lot of trouble getting them adopted.
Mm.
So rather than buying in a pet store, if you can get them from a rescue and you know that you can take care of them for a long period of time, they live 30, 50 years sometimes even.
Wow.
Uh, Yeah, and you should not be releasing them into the wild, particularly Ontario. You shouldn't release a pet into the wild anyway because they won't know how to fend for themselves. But red-eared sliders are an invasive species in
Wow.
Ontario, so they're going to do some damage inadvertently to their environment if they're released into the Ontario ecosystem, hurting the
Mm,
native life, basically. So it's teaching kids through a character that represents the story of many red-eared slider turtles and other pet turtles that have
wow.
experienced a similar sort of story of a life. And but fortunately we can turn this around. We can give them happy lives as
Wow.
long as we can do it. So and I also with this book, I'll just show the cover page again there.
Yeah.
um 50% of my proceeds from my sales and my royalties actually goes to Little Rescue Reptile Rescue. So they're my
Wow.
partner with this book.
Wow.
So it's, yeah, I actually hope to be doing something like that soon, find an organization in New Zealand with Peter Littlewing to do
Mm,
a dollar from every sales to go to them as well. But because I've done that with Tamara Turtle's life so far, and with another book we'll be talking about in a little while. So,
wow.
yeah,
Interesting, really. I love all of these. I love your answers to this question and the making of your book. It's quite amazing
thank you.
to me. And
Thank you.
now, Regan, you have Show, the Unfeathered Parrot. Would you like to
Yeah,
tell us briefly about the making of that as well?
sure. Here it is there. Chloe the Unfeathered Parrot. And this one
Interesting.
is actually in a similar vein to Tamara, which we were just talking about.
Mm,
50% of my royalties and my sales goes to the Parrot Sanctuary here
wow.
in Toronto. Yeah, in my town here, Toronto. And it was written with the same sorts of intentions as Tamara Turtle's life so far, but it's based on a true parrot
Mm,
and a true story.
wow.
And this is a parrot who plucked her feathers. So I'll show you the cover here again. As you can see, she was just stressed out with her owner at the time,
Mm,
and she plucked out her feathers from boredom and stress.
mm,
And this owner of hers recognized that, okay, obviously I'm not doing what she needs to take care of her properly. So he surrenders her to the parrot sanctuary. And again, I will say it takes a while, but she finds her perfect forever flock, as they like to
mm,
say, um, to call home. Um, as I do, as I said to you before, I like parents to know that there is a happy ending here. And which is extra wonderful because it's a true story and a true happy ending.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, again, teaching children about the sort of commitment involved in this sort of parrots, even more so, I would say, than reptiles and those kinds of exotic pets. Although there's so much commitment and detail and research involved in in taking care of a turtle or a reptile, a snake, anything like that. But birds, they have a tendency, some of them, to live even longer. The smaller parrots, like Chloe, live for 30 years or so.
yeah.
Still a major commitment, more so than a dog or a cat. So there's that. And I also wanted to teach kids and parents that for parrots especially, there are some homes that suit better than others. There is a perfect fit, and you need to take the time to figure that out. Whether your home is really, not only are you able to take care of the bird, but are you the right fit for a particular
Mm,
kind of bird, like Chloe, who was so stressed and bored, needing that extra interactivity and time and care and stuff like that. So yeah, that's Chloe the Unfeathered Parrot.
interesting. It sounds pretty much interesting to me. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And now,
Oh, thank you.
Regan, apart from the books we've mentioned thus far, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on? Also, what piqued your interest to write in the themes of children's literature?
Well, I think I do have other books I'm working on, but I'll answer the other question first, if that's okay, about what made me interested in writing for children.
Yeah.
And which is a little bit funny because I don't have children myself. So
Mm.
people always wonder, why do you write for children? But I think the answer is in part that I've been writing ever since I was a kid.
Mm.
So ever since the age of 6.
Wow.
So of course at the time I was writing for children because I was a child, until I got a little bit older and wrote some stuff for older people. But even when I was a teenager, I still wrote a couple short stories, again with
Mm.
animals. One particular short story, though, not short story, excuse me, an actual picture book that I did. I was in grade 6, and
Mm.
I was lucky enough, our school was lucky enough to host author who she has passed away a few years ago, but she was pretty incredible Canadian children's literature author, Emily Hearn. She hosted one of our classes. She sort of took us through how to write a picture book, and that was our
Mm.
project for I'm gonna say a month or so,
Wow.
um, to partner up and come up with a picture book. And the one that I came up with, I eventually did end up reworking as an adult and publishing, and it was the first book I published, and it's called
Uh,
Beverly Brown Burmese, and
Interesting.
just a book about a Burmese cat with a wild imagination. She imagines things into other things. So anyway, I think the that all of those helped steer me in that direction. I do write other things. I do write for adult readers,
Mm.
and I do write scripts, and for theater and for film, and short stories. And the short stories tend to be these days mostly for adult readers.
Mm.
But yeah, and I do have a novel I'm co-writing in the works, coming up. But I have no idea when that one will come out. But it is an adult reader novel. But that that is why I think I will always be writing for children as well. And also because I very much love to write from an animal's perspective,
Mm.
or an anthropomorphic perspective,
Yeah.
which tends to fit in a little better with children's literature. I mean, there's things like Animal Farm that are written for adult readers,
Mm.
but generally still most books about animals tend to fall into the young
Wow.
reader category. So yeah, I would say that's why. And as far as books that I'm working on,
Yeah.
uh, I'm sorry, is that what you asked me
Yeah. The
too?
books you're currently
Okay,
working on.
double checking that. Yes, I'm working on book 2 and 3 right now, most extensively, of Peter Littlewing. Peter
Mm.
Littlewing in the Bay of Islands is book 2,
Wow.
and actually getting close to being able to hand that into my publisher, same publisher, Pandemonium Publishing House.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I'm just getting the assessment from a new Maori writer and teacher. And book 3, I'm sort of working on hot on its heels because book 2 will come out in 2025, and I'm not sure if book 3 is expected to come out in 2026 or
Mm.
2027. So just in case,
Wow.
I'm trying to keep up with that one as well, and it will be going to my New Zealand editor for the first
Mm.
time in a couple months. Um,
Interesting.
and I'm also working on a couple books in the whole, a couple new books in this whole series of like Tamara Turtle's Life So Far and Chloe the Unfeathered Parrot. I'm actually switching over and working with a place called The Land Between. It's a
Mm.
conservation in Northern Ontario, Muskoka area. And writing 2 picture books about conservation. One on wetland conservation called Finn the Conservation Frog, and the other
Mm.
one being Trevor the Conservation Toad, and that one is about forest conservation. So,
Wow.
and as same as the other 2 rescues I'm working with, the Land Between will get the 50% proceeds that I described earlier, and yeah, so it's busy.
Yeah.
A busy. Yes,
It's
yeah.
it's a lot of work you get ongoing, really. And I love the conservation team in there. Lovely to
Thank you.
know. And now, Regan, let's talk about the challenges you've encountered in the process of writing your book. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it?
Okay, well, I guess I've talked about this already, but getting for Peter Littlewing in particular, getting New Zealand right and the Maori
Mm,
sensitivity and consultation work that I've been doing, that's and the research actually, particularly with, with specifically with respect to the animals,
yeah.
and ongoing conversations back and forth with one of the science techs at the Department of Conservation in New Zealand. She works in the South Island with great spotted kiwi
Mm,
and the like. Those would be the biggest challenges and just sort of the most daunting things that I've been facing and continually am working on with book one, was working on with book one, and am continuing to work on with book two, with three and four.
mm,
Um, it's particularly a little frustrating because there's some science in the background, despite being, a book of fiction. Um, as scientists learn more about kiwi and the other animals,
yeah.
this any animal that's being studied anywhere, of course, uh, the information changes.
Wow.
So I have to update my work
Wow.
based um, new discoveries or
Yeah.
tweaks that people in science have made based on their discoveries of kiwi behavior, for example,
Yeah.
and there actually was a recent one where my information was quite out of date, so I had to make a fairly significant shift or tweak to book two because
Mm.
of this. So, yeah, that is an ongoing challenge.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
This is amazing, really. That's lovely to know the challenges you encountered and how you navigate through it. It's quite amazing to know. And now, Reagan, in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview, I would love to get any copy of your book. On what platform is it available on for purchase?
Okay, well, I would recommend for those who are outside of North America, to purchase on Amazon any of my books, and including the ones we've talked about today,
Yeah.
will be the easiest way as far as shipping goes, and the least expensive, I would say. Those who are in North America, of course, you can still purchase through Amazon and the usual kinds of online places like Barnes and Noble,
Mm.
Indigo here in Canada. Yeah, and but you can also purchase directly through Pandemonium Publishing House's website. They have a shop, and so for North American readers in particular, that would be one of my recommendations.
Okay.
Not that they can't get the books to you internationally as well. If you want to support an independent publisher as well, a smaller
Yeah.
press, which is wonderful. And in North America, you can buy directly through my website, reganwhmacaulay.com, and just
Mm.
navigate to the books page, and you can purchase directly through me.
Interesting.
And the nice thing about that is you can actually get it signed. I can sign it for you, or something
Interesting.
a little personalized if you
Yeah.
get it that. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Reagan's books directly on Amazon and also on other platform. So thank you so much, Reagan, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well. This was fun.